I love homemade caramels. They are so good. If I'm feeling fancy, I say caramel. If I'm feeling not so fancy, I'll say caramels. So you'll hear me say it both ways. Regardless, this is one of my favorite treats to make, and I thought I would show you how I do it. Okay, I highly recommend a candy thermometer for this. You can use a traditional kind, like you see here, specifically for candy. This one is kind of cool. It's got the thermometer inside of a rubber scraper and it has a digital display, and you can remove the spatula part if you don't want it. Then we have this one that has digital settings, and then this is just kind of your standard food thermometer. This one I mostly use for steak. So my favorite one is this one because not only does it clip to the side of the pot, it has a splash guard. And then also there are several settings on here that have an alarm that sort of tell me when I'm approaching my desired heat and when I've reached the desired heat. And I can set it to softball stage, which is what you will want to use for this recipe. And then it's got this little cover that when I'm done I can store it with that. I like to get my pan ready ahead of time. I use both parchment and cooking spray, but you could just do one or the other. I also like to get my pan on a hot pad all ready to go, and my rubber scraper and my oven mitts and the spoon I'm going to stir with, and then I get my pot ready, clamp my thermometer on that I'm going to use, and set it to all of my presets so that I don't have to think about it later. And then I pre-measure and get all of my ingredients opened and ready to mix in at the right time. As far as ingredients, I have 1 cup of butter, and I just use salted because it's what I have on hand, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of light Karo syrup, 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, my small rubber scraper to scrape that out because once it's boiling you're not going to have time, and then of course my teaspoon of vanilla. I always make sure that I also have my drink filled and ready to go, and that I'm wearing comfortable shoes because there is just something about standing at the stove stirring constantly that make my feet hurt. Now these first 3 ingredients, the syrup, the sugar, and the butter, I will add to the pot first, and the rest we'll add once we remove it from the heat. Okay, in a pot over medium heat, I've added my syrup, sugar, and butter. And I'm going to go ahead and just slowly stir this, but stir it constantly, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. Obviously, I'm speeding this part up for your sake, but again, you're going to just slowly stir it. I like to make sure that I'm scraping the sides and the bottom as I stir. If you start to see little clumps, then you need to turn your heat down just a little bit. But I usually keep mine just a little bit hotter than medium. Okay, once it starts to come to a boil, I will go ahead and set my timer for 4 minutes and then let it boil undisturbed for 4 minutes, still keeping it over this medium to medium high heat. But you'll notice the bubbles should be pulling to the center, should be nice rolling boil. Okay, 4 minutes has elapsed, so I've turned off the stove and now I'm going to remove it from the heat and stir in my sweetened condensed milk until it's well combined. Okay, this looks nice and combined. So now I'm going to go ahead and return it to the heat, and I'm going to cook it while stirring constantly until the thermometer reads about 238 degrees or a softball stage. Sometimes this process has taken me about 20 minutes, and sometimes it's taken me a lot longer, and I'm not sure if that's depending on the weather or the stove or what have you. Also, this particular thermometer sometimes alerts me that it's done at about 234 degrees. So as long as it's between 234 and 238, you should be good. Once you hit about 240, however, it starts to merge into the hardball stage, and you don't want that. And you see that my final ingredient that I've added after I've removed it from the heat is my teaspoon of vanilla. So just stir that in until it's well combined, and then you are ready to pour this into your prepared pan. Okay, I've scraped a little bit out of the bottom of the pan and I want to show you. See how it just kind of stays together and I can easily form this into a ball. This is a good sign. This means this batch of caramel is just perfect. This is what a softball stage looks like. So as it cools, it retains its shape. And of course, I always leave a little drop at the bottom of the pot for myself so I can eat it. Yum! I like to use the cellophane wraps to wrap my caramels in after I cut them. They come in a pack of, I don't know, about maybe 600. I get them on Amazon. They're 4x4 candy cello wrappers. You want to make sure that your caramel is completely cool before cutting. It's usually maybe about 4 to 6 hours. Sometimes I'll even wait a day or two before cutting. And then I'll go ahead and prep my workstation, usually with just a little bit of cooking spray on my cutting board and then on whatever utensil or tool I use to cut my caramels. In this case, I'm using a pastry cutter. You could also use a pizza cutter or a sharp knife. Then I'm just going to simply cut my caramels into rows of about 1-inch squares. I simply place the caramel square at the bottom edge of the cello wrapper and roll up into a tube, pinch both ends and twist in opposite directions. Pretty much just like this. And this is where it's helpful if you have kids that can wrap, or friends or family, when you gather together and just get everyone involved in the wrapping, and it just goes so much faster. If I'm giving caramels away for gifts, I like to store them in these little cute containers. They're just really cute. Or you can put them in a mason jar or even just Ziploc bags.